or at least I don't always. So let's go ahead. Ron, would you mind starting with the roll?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Robert Ciappinelli,
Here.
Dr. Kader.
Here.
Where's the echo coming from?
Let's all mute if we're not talking.
Okay.
Dr. Evan Eiler.
Here.
Gail Falk.
Present.
Dr. Gades.
Here.
Dr. Greenberg.
Present.
Dr. Ireland.
Just made it.
Thank you. Suzanne Jones.
I'm here.
Dr. King. I
Here.
will mark her down. Thank you. Stephanie Lorenz.
Here.
Dr. Odachi, I think in surgery.
Mhm.
Don Philibert.
I'm here.
Judy Scott.
I am here.
Dr. Tando. I think she's at a conference. Dr. Tortolani.
Here.
Scott Tucker.
Here.
Megan Campbell. Also at a conference. Kurt Keel.
Kurt's at the same conference.
Yep. Bill Reynolds is here.
Here.
Justin Cheng. Not here. Scott Frenier.
Here.
Tracy Hayes.
Here.
David Hurley.
Here.
Paula Nenninger.
Here.
Marcy Quinlan. Okay. Is there anybody here that I didn't call? Great. Thank you. Matt, you're muted.
Sorry, technology issues here, trying to get on the right screen. Thank you, Ron. I'm assuming we're on the record at this point. And are there any guests? I didn't hear anyone else speak up when you asked. Okay. Then why don't we, I'm trying to keep an eye on our agenda here. Do we have any public comment? All right, I don't hear any there. How about we approve the minutes from October 1st? Hopefully everybody got a chance to look at them. I'd like to entertain a motion regarding the minutes.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Great. So we have a motion and a second. Any discussion on that? All right, all those in favor of approving the minutes from October 1st, aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, motion passes. Board issues. I don't have any board issues. Well, actually, I take that back. I have one. I recently received my first email from FSMB, personally addressed to me. I guess Rick had passed that on. Asking if anybody, asking if anybody on our board is interested in participating in any committees. There was not a whole lot of detail, just asking, basically looking for people to be involved at the national level. So if anybody is interested, let me know and I can pass you on to the right people. That's all I have for board issues. David, administrative update.
Sure. And first, I just want to say thank you to Matt for stepping up and serving. We're looking forward to your leadership. Few admin items to touch on. The first, you've been hearing about it maybe in the news, the state return to office process continues. In theory, everybody who works for the state is going to be working in the office for 3 days or more per week after December 1st. There is, though, a hiccup with the Department of Health because they do not have enough workspaces for everybody from the central office at Department of Health who's assigned now to Waterbury to work 3 days a week. And so we are sort of, we've been given some fuzzy direction about, we're going to do the best we can with the available spaces we have. And it varies a little bit from division to division, but that's where we are. And I just want to acknowledge, this is really pretty stressful on the staff who have to deal with the uncertainty and it's also for our employees who are so dedicated to what they do, questions about whether we're going to have appropriate workspace to comply with the requirement and do our jobs are, I think, really weighing on everybody. So we're going to do our best, and December 1 will be here one way or another in just over 3 weeks. So the hearing panel that we had talked about previously, needing volunteers for a December case, that did go to a preliminary hearing in front of George Belcher, a hearing officer, and he granted the defense motion for more discovery, or the respondent's motion, I should say, for more discovery. And that resulted in the need for the case to be continued. Unfortunately, the respondent's counsel has trials already scheduled in court and will not be available until June. And so the case is being rescheduled to June. We'll be issuing a revised scheduling order at some point after the 21st of November, which is the deadline for the parties to get back to the hearing officer confirming their availability for the dates that he was asking them to make themselves available and ensure that witnesses are available. The Tyler project, the IT
Hey,
project.
David.
Yes.
Sorry, Scott Tucker has his hand up, I think, regarding that last issue.
Just curious, who's on your panel?
We didn't get a sufficient number of volunteers for the December date, and that's we'll start over again with a new request for volunteers for the dates that are determined for the June dates. Oh, and I should also preview, we have another case with pending charges, and there's been a lengthy discovery process there with a number of witnesses having been deposed. And it's anticipated that in coming months we'll have another request going out for more members. So more to come on that one. So the IT project continues and is taking up a lot of time. And again, I sound like a broken record, but I need to thank Tracy and Kelly, especially.
That's the output, not the input.
For all their.
Can you mute?
Pat, you're
For-
live.
Okay, I just want to thank staff for all their hard work on that project that continues to go quite well. And next, I'll note that I'll be out of the office November 17, 18, and 19 at a meeting of it's the annual meeting of the IMLCC. And also, the last day, the 19th, will be the fall meeting of the Association for Medical Board Directors. And so I will miss the South meeting on the 19th. And thank you to everybody who participated in the BIPIP liaison meeting that took place on November 3rd, Monday, late in the afternoon. And I think that we had a good visit, and we are going to be working on having another presentation from BIPIP for the full board. Just we've had some turnover and some new members, and I think it'd probably be helpful. You all rely on the information they provide, and I think that it would be good for you all to have a reminder about how they go about their business. So more to come on that. And that's it for the admin update.
Great. Thank you, David. So in our other business, we had listed a call for nominations. As everybody's aware, the administrators, I don't know, what do we call ourselves? The voted members of the board are turning over at the beginning of the year, and we would need nominations for chair, vice chair, secretary. We were talking about having a brief meeting of a nomination committee. And frankly, David, I don't remember, did we choose people for that already, or were we going to do that impromptu?
No, well, so today is the request for nominations, and I would encourage, I would encourage people to nominate themselves if they're interested, or you can nominate someone else. And then once we have a group of nominees, we'll have the nominations committee, which is an ad hoc committee, review those and present a slate to be voted on at the December meeting. But what we need today is to have 3 members with at least 1 public member and 1 MD member volunteer, and it's what that will entail is getting an email from me summarizing the nominations, and then having a brief meeting scheduled to take place on Teams for you all to approve a slate, and then that will be on the agenda for the December meeting.
Okay, so are we looking for nominations right at this very moment? Nominations for the positions.
Nominations for the positions, yes.
Okay.
So who is currently, I know now that Matt has moved into the chair's role, who is the vice chair? Do we have a vice chair?
So Bob has had volunteered to be acting vice chair. And so Bob has been wearing 2 hats. I don't know if that's quite allowed, but the secretary role is not highly demanding, and so he's courageously taken on both roles at once. Right now it's just Matt and Bob, and so I guess maybe if we go in order, I see Bob has his hand up.
Thank you. Can I make 2 nominations?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Matt for chair and Dr. Eiler for vice chair. He's not here, so that's a good time to do it.
He was here.
I know.
That'll teach him.
Those are my nominations.
I think he stepped away because his you can still see his office.
Yes.
You know, I didn't realize he was gone at the moment I did it, but it's not really fair to do that when someone's not here.
Well, thank you, Rob. I appreciate that. And I would be happy to serve if there is no one else, if there's anyone else who would like to, by all means.
Great.
Do we
Could
have
I
any
just
other-
thank you. Thanks, Matt. Dr. Eiler, I just nominated you for vice chair. I just wanted you to know I did that since you were out. So
Wait, what?
That will teach you.
You're
I'm
seconded
sorry,
and approved.
I got flagged about a prescription that had a problem. Excuse me, I'm sorry. Say, what are we doing?
I nominated you for vice chair, and Dr. Greenberg for chair of the board.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome. I think it'd be perfect.
Any other nominations, suggestions? Anybody?
Do
We
we
still need a
also need-
secretary and certainly can have more than one nominee for each position.
Absolutely.
I would nominate Dr. Tortolani for secretary.
Okay. Well, anybody else that would like to nominate themselves, perhaps?
Scott.
All right, I'm not hearing a whole lot else. So we at least have those. We can consider, David, we can still consider others outside of this meeting if before that ad hoc committee meets, correct?
Right, and I can accept nominations by email. And might I suggest, Matt, do you want to, I know you said that you'd be willing to serve, but should we give those nominated an opportunity to decline or accept the nomination? That would just make it more orderly.
Yeah.
I see Bob's hand is up.
Well, I think it's an honor to be nominated for anything. I'm currently chair of the licensing committee, which I'm comfortable with, and I think maybe somebody else should be nominated for secretary. I know it's not an onerous position, but thanks, Scott, for your faith in me. But I just thought we could just spread it out, so other people can have the honor of these positions.
Could you share with us the responsibilities of the secretary?
I can answer that, Bob. If there's rare occasions when we need the secretary to sign something on behalf of the board, and it's really just a backup to the vice, which is a backup to run meetings when the chair is not available. And potentially it also kind of puts you more in line to be asked to maybe help in representing a board position to the legislature as an officer. But it's as Bob said, it's not onerous.
Well, I personally like the idea of spreading these honors. I think these are all honors to be nominated, to spread that out to, we have so many deserving people on our board. So I would actually wish somebody else would do the secretarial work, have the honor of doing those things and, being backup, whatever.
Judy,
I would do it
are
if
you
nobody else did it, but wanted to be it. But I appreciate Scott, but I just want to spread it out. I think we should all be involved.
I mean, honestly, it's not really a lot of work. So you shouldn't be afraid to dabble with this position.
Judy, you spoke up. Are you interested? I'd be happy to nominate you.
Thank you for asking. I feel that I am still much too new and inexperienced to even put myself in line for the other august positions. If we're offering ourselves up, I'm willing to serve on the ad hoc committee for nominations, but really don't feel ready.
Perfect. Don, I see your hand up.
Oh, I think that's RE4. But as I will tell you, as long as it doesn't involve minute taking, because I'm the Secretary of Habitat for Humanity and that involves minute taking, I'd be happy to throw my hat in the ring. But welcome anyone else to do so.
There is no minute taking involved, though. That's a great idea to pass out that duty.
That's my job security.
Yeah. Okay, great. Well, I'll take that as a nomination. Gail, I see your hand up.
Yeah, I'm just thinking about gender and geographical diversity, and that made me think of Suzanne as being a really great choice.
Suzanne?
I'd be happy to do it. If Dawn doesn't want to, does not matter. So,
Let's see. Suzanne, I'm happy to withdraw my nomination and glad you stepped up.
well, I really don't want to speak in front of the legislature though, but
Evan, I see your hand up as well.
I would also say that I am willing to serve, but also willing to share. And if someone thought this over and went, wait a minute, I don't really want to be secretary, I want to be vice chair, and decided to throw their hat in to that instead, that would be a-okay with me. Also, this is the most agreeable group.
I was going to say, this is the most cordial nomination
No, really,
process.
you do
I've
it. No,
seen.
you do it. Yeah. And you know, there's a lot of talent in this group. A lot of folks could do, you know, anything.
Anybody else like to speak up? Anybody else interested in being the chair?
Oh, come on, Matt. As I said to you at the beginning of the meeting, between the glory and the money and the
glory and the
power,
money.
you gotta grab this one.
Well, I'm honored and happy to do it. So if there are nobody else, I'm happy to do it. So I think we do at least have a minimum slate, and I have one person for the ad hoc committee. We would need at this point 2 more. Is that correct, David?
Yes,
One
an
being-
MD member
One being an MD.
and plus 1 other member.
Presumably not one of the nominees.
Probably a good idea.
Rob, I see your hand up.
Yeah, I'm happy to volunteer for that and help out
Okay,
in the
great.
panel.
Then we need a physician.
I'm happy to help out.
Great. Thank you, Peter. Okay, David, did you get all that?
Yes.
Okay. Any other discussion on the board officer positions, nominations, the process, anything like that?
I'll just say, Matt, I will give, just to leave open the possibility of additional nominations until the end of this week. So through the end of the day, Friday, and you can self-nominate. And then next week, I'll send out an email and we can have a very, very brief call to have the ad hoc nominations committee approve the slate.
Okay. And I think it's only fair that I should mention that I had nominated Pat, who had declined for the chair position.
No.
Okay. I guess we move on and review the draft calendar of the meeting of the board and standing committees. Ron, do you have that?
Yeah, you want me to try to put it up?
Sure.
It was in the packet.
It was in the packet. I'm scrolling. I have multiple pages open on my computer. I'm scrolling to that. Did anybody have any questions or concerns when they saw that calendar?
So there's different numbers of in-person meetings. Is that the choice of the respective committees? The North has 4, South has 3, Central has 2.
That reflects the choices that were made this year. And so when staff put the calendar together, they just followed the same pattern as this year. And it's open to, if the committees want to discuss adding or subtracting or moving the in-person meetings, we can still adjust it.
And that can be done at the committee level. How soon ahead of time for the open meeting rules do we have to notify whether it's in person or not?
Oh, I mean, that's really short. It's like, I think it's a 72-hour notice.
Okay, great.
It's pretty short. That those can be changed, but of course it's, we would like to be at least a month ahead of time so we can
Great.
make sure that everybody's aware. And it's also just and even more than that, we need to be able to schedule rooms and cancel or add catering for the meetings that are in person.
I would say it's really better to have your year schedule for the most part made out, because also Scotty and I start inviting respondents like a few months out, and then we're assuming it's Teams, and then if you change it, it usually pushes back the invite. So having the year schedule is really helpful.
Okay, I guess I was more or less wondering if the committee meetings could be discussed at the next committee meeting of that respective committee if they want to change it.
I would highly encourage.
Okay.
Yeah, that would be fine. And so, but so I guess today we can say that the board meetings and licensing committees go with the board generally. So those are approved, and we will firm things up with the committees this month.
I think that sounds very reasonable. Anyone else have any thoughts or concerns about that? Okay. Let me scroll back to the agenda here. IMLC profile cases. I believe this was yours also, David.
Yes. So I don't know, some of you may be wondering what this is all about. It's really pretty simple. So the MDs licensed through the IMLCC do not need to fill out our Vermont application. And they are licensed based on a letter of qualification that verifies their eligibility to be licensed through the compact. And as a result, when their license is issued, they must fill out the online licensee profile, which is required by Vermont law. And there's a law that specifies the different categories of information that we must display, make available to the public in the profiles. With the people who fill out our application, it's never an issue because it's automatically populated using the information from their application. So when the licenses get issued, and it's one of her most very favorite duties, Tracy contacts the IMLC licensees and notifies them of several things, including the requirement that they fill out the profile. Then Tracy keeps on having to check and verify that they've completed the profiles. And if they don't complete it within about 3 weeks, and I think it varies a little bit based on Tracy's availability and how busy she is with other duties, but it's about 3 weeks. She goes back to them and sends them another notice. And then she follows up, and each month she'll go through and see who needs to do it and send additional notices. When we get to 3 notices at a minimum, then she passes it off to Kelly and says, Kelly, make a case about this. And so the reason why I put this on the agenda is to ensure the board is comfortable with the staff working through these cases using the non-disciplinary financial penalty process, similar to what we do with the bad address cases. And that some time ago, the board, we talked about it, and you don't see the bad address cases unless somebody just never agrees to complete it, or they decline to pay the financial penalty and say, I want an investigation. And then it'll come on your case list. But otherwise, this is really just a means of managing the workload for the investigative committees, so that it's not a distraction for you all, these fairly routine matters. And if there's some aggravating circumstances, perhaps there might be a case where we would put it to a committee before we proceeded. But generally, what happens is we would send a letter to the licensee saying, from the investigator, who's the only one assigned to the case, and saying, you really need to do this. I'm an investigator. Do you want to have a case opened? You need to do this. And then if they do it, tell them, well, we can resolve this now with you paying the financial penalty, which per rules is set at $100. And so if they pay up, the matter will not be referred to one of the investigative committees. And I just wanted to run that by you and make sure that everybody is comfortable with that, and that we resolve those administrative matters in the way described.
Okay.
And I don't think we need a motion on that. We can record in the minutes that you were all advised about it. And if nobody has any concerns, I'd be happy to answer any other questions you may have about this. But again, it's not reportable to the NPDB, and we tell people in the correspondence that it's not a disciplinary matter, and that it's just simply a non-disciplinary financial penalty to address an administrative issue.
I think it seems consistent with how we address other administrative issues. Does anybody have any questions or concerns for David? I am not seeing any hands, so we'll just put that on the record as you suggested.
Yeah. Okay. Great.
Okay.
So, and the last item on the list is we just recently got notice about the letter from FSMB inviting us to the annual meeting in Baltimore, which is going to be April 30th to May 2nd, 2026. And they also gave us the guidance about their support for boards to send representatives, and they are again doing 3 positions or attendees that they're going to pay. They call them scholarships, but they're going to fund 3 from each board that is a current and paid member, and they are identified as 1 being for the chair or the chair's designee, 1 for a senior staff representative, and then a 3rd representative to be selected for the board. And then, as in prior years, there's also the ability to apply for a public member scholarship for a public member who's not previously attended an FSMB meeting, either under the public member scholarship or otherwise paid for by their board or some other basis. So if we get right on it, and those are limited, I think they do 12 of those a year. We've had very good luck in quickly deciding who is going to be the public member representative, so that I can write on behalf of Matt and let them know and get that nomination in process. and they're first come, first serve. And so we would have a good chance of having 4 paid representatives at the board. And so today, the most important task is to identify who, if anybody, out of our public members would be designated and who would like to go under that. And one other thing to say about attending, you know, in the past, we used to just do the our attendees would be limited to the people who are funded by the FSMB, but the last couple of years, the board has made the decision to support an additional member going, so that's a possibility too. If we have a lot of people who'd like to attend, I think we have a lot of people. We've had a pretty good sized group going the last couple of years, in part because Dr. King, who was a prior chair of FSMB and now is, I believe you're the chair of the FSMB Foundation, Pat, and so she is funded to go by that process. So we have quite a crew in attendance. You know, again, it's the key thing is to identify if we're going to have a public member nominated for a public member who hasn't attended before scholarship. We need to decide that today. And then if there are lots of people and you want to think about it more, or if you need to check your schedules, we really just need to decide in December who are going to be the other representatives from the board. And I say December only because even though it seems far off at the end of April, the earlier that we get that decided and you can start the process of we can get the nominations into FSMB, and then you'll get the paperwork back telling you that you've been approved. You can start working on travel arrangements and the hotel reservation. And the earlier you start doing that, there's a greater chance you're going to get, if you're eligible for a government rate in the hotel, you need to show government employee ID, then that saves money on the overall expense. And the airline tickets are easier to get. So I guess, Matt, the first matter is to throw it out to our public members, and it's limited to those who haven't been to the meeting before, to raise their hands and let us know if they'd like to apply to attend.
So I see Gail has her hand up and Pat had her hand up. Gail, why don't you go first?
I'm a public member. I haven't been. I would like to go.
Great.
And I guess I should say that my grandfather went to medical school in Baltimore and met my grandmother there. And my father went to medical school in Baltimore and met my mother there. So it seems like I'm called to go to Baltimore.
Great. Thanks,
Hey, Gail,
Gail.
just one question. Does it work with the timing of your time in Louisiana with your family? Would you be traveling?
I'll be back from then.
You'll be back. Okay.
Yeah,
All right. I just wanted to know if I would need to check in with FSMB if they would pay for travel from
No,
someplace other than your home. Yeah. Okay, great.
Pat, did you have a comment too?
Yeah, I just had a comment, Matt. The other thing to consider is that a second staff member could go and might really find it valuable. There are many other staff members from other boards, you know, there's an attorney workshop that I think is today and tomorrow, actually, or tomorrow and Friday. But But other investigators, other licensing staff, I think it would be very interesting for any staff member also.
Great. Anyone else interested in going that is a community member?
Matt, I'd like to say something.
Sure.
I'd like any potential person who goes to this to consider the train ride. It's a lovely ride from, if you're near a station in Vermont, it's right to the city of Baltimore, and it's enjoyable. You have a good book, and it's an enjoyable ride. So I'd encourage you to do it. I've been on the road. I've been on that trip to Baltimore by train. It's very nice. So just keep that in mind.
Good to know. Thank you.
Good idea.
See,
All
Dawn
right.
has her hand up, Matt.
Sorry, I didn't see who else's hand is up. Dawn?
Dawn. Dawn, you're on mute.
Sorry. David, a couple of months ago, you mentioned, I think it was an FSMB upcoming training on trauma-informed investigation.
Can we talk about that after we finish this? I'll bring
Sure.
that up after
Okay.
we're there. Yeah.
I'm sorry. Yeah, thanks. I didn't see it on the agenda, so.
Great. And Pat, did you have another comment? Okay,
Sorry, can't lower my hand. Thank you.
got it. Anyone else?
All right. So there are no other public members who would like to throw their name in the ring for, or hat in the ring, whatever the term is, to be the public member designated scholarship. All right, so I'll get right on that, letting them know that Gail is going to be our nominated attendee for that. And so, Matt, do you want to try and see if sometimes we're unable to make a decision because people, as I said, people need to check their schedules or check on other things. Do we know? Are you going to be available to go, Matt? And are you interested in going?
I think I am. I would need to check with the family and the wife, but I think probably that time. I just look at my calendar, and I think we'll be all set for that time period. But not set in stone quite yet.
This assumes, given that nominations have not closed, this assumes
This
we'll
is
have
true.
another nomination for chair.
This is true.
And that you'll pass the vetting process by the nominations committee. So, all right.
Is the background check done yet on Dr. Greenberg? I'm just asking.
So, all right. So Matt would go as the chair, and I have typically gone. I'd like to go again this year. And then we have a third representation, which, as Pat mentioned, could be for a staff person or a board member. Are there other board members who'd be interested in attending? And don't be shy.
I see Rob's hand up.
Yeah, if there is an extra slot after Gail gets the public spot, I'd be interested in attending. The dates look pretty good.
And I see David's hand up too. David Coder.
Yeah, I'd be interested in going if there's an available spot.
Anybody else? Okay, and I think, David, if I remember correctly, we have had the 3 from FSMB, but we've often chosen to send one more, correct?
I wouldn't say in recent years, we've been able to designate an additional person, and the board has made the arrangements. It's, you know, a little bit different process, but the end result is the same, that you get to go and it's not on your own dime. When we went to Nashville, Dr. Tortolani came, and Tracy worked to make his reservations, and we try to minimize the administrative burden on the members, and do it. So we direct pay the hotel, I believe, and direct pay the travel arrangements, whether it's plane or train in this case. And then we would just need to do reimbursement for the meals and any other additional expenses that are incurred.
And
So,
David,
and
I just have a question. Could I, is it possible for someone to go on his own expense just because it's an interesting meeting? I mean, I'm just, it's not overwhelming, but I just question that. In other words, is there a limit to how many people from a specific board can come just because it's not okay? This is a question.
I believe we need to pay after the covered positions. I think we need to pay a conference fee. It's not it's not a huge fee. I think it's about maybe $250. It's and it covers the attendance, and they have they provide some meals and refreshments and snacks during breaks.
Okay, thank you for that.
And just for any of the members who haven't heard the pitch, I mean, I invite there's a lot of members now that attended the meetings in the last few years, and I welcome you to speak up. I think that the meeting is always really well done. FSMB puts a lot of effort into it. They get great speakers. We saw some really informative and really very moving presentations at Nashville, and again at Seattle this past year. It was really, really well done.
It's very, very valuable, and it's a well-oiled machine. I am so glad I had the opportunity to go 2 years ago. I encourage anyone to go.
I think everybody should go. It's just, you do learn so much. They do such a good job, and it helps us do our board work. The only reason I'm considering, kind of self-paying is I had to leave the conference early because of a health issue in my family. So I never kind of got the full picture. So I think it's a great place. It's a great conference, and I think everybody should go at least once.
It was helpful to meet people behind all the initials that we talk about at the meeting, and certainly clicks all the boxes at a national level conference. So it's well worth your time, even though it's on a weekend.
Yeah, and it's not just national; it's international. I mean, we had some really interesting presentations about some approaches in New Zealand and other countries, and it's so Bob, I don't and again I'll just leave it open to you all, because you all provide me the direction and other staff direction if you want to support additional individuals. There's no rule, Bob, that says if you have a family emergency and you need to leave early that you have to pay if you want to go again. I don't think you should be penalized in that way. And we can, if the board wants to support having 2 additional paid attendees, then and you're willing to put your own time into being there, then the board can elect to do that.
I think that's a great idea, and I would suggest the board offer to pay Dr. Tortolani's expenses.
That's nice, Dawn. I don't, if I were to do it, I would not mind paying for myself, honestly. I just, the major, I would want to make sure if I were to go this year that I wouldn't take anybody else's space. That's why I wondered how many extras we could take. And
yeah, Pat has spoken up in the meeting chat saying there's no limit at how many from a state can attend, and few states have very large representation. So why don't you think about it? If you're available and this board can support, I would be in favor of that as well.
Pat,
And Baltimore is a great city.
Pat, is there a conference fee for additional members though? I know there's not a limit.
Yes.
On how many people.
Yeah, there is a conference fee. I mean, that would be the other alternative, would be considering paying the conference fee for people so they don't have to shoulder that cost. Because David, I think it's around $1,000.
Is it 1,000? Oh, is it?
Yeah,
that much?
I think. I don't know that for sure, but I don't know why that. Maybe that's how much IAMRA was. IAMRA was about 1,000. And most, I think we have had people who have paid their own way in the past. Pat Hunter used to go every year and she paid her own way. I don't know if she, did you cover her conference fee or not? Did she pay for it all?
No, we didn't.
Yeah.
It never
She
came
went-
up.
Yeah, she went once as a public member and she went many times and paid her own way each year. So that is a possibility. Obviously, some states like North Carolina has a huge crew of people there. They are a very wealthy board. I don't know if they pay for everyone or if people pay their own way, but Texas has a big group, Minnesota. So it really varies.
Yeah, that the information about whether or not there's a fee is not yet posted.
Yeah.
For the annual meeting.
Well, David, I mean, it sounds like we have a group of people that are interested, and once we have a little bit more data, it might make it a little bit easier. And once people check their schedules, we can work this out. But
So
I'm encouraged by the number of people that are interested in going.
So I right now I have down there public members, Gail Falk. You will be the chair, myself, Rob Chapinelli, and David Coder, and Bob Tortolani, and just to work out the details as to whether Bob would accept the board paying his travel expenses again, and finding out about the questions regarding whether there's a conference fee. And potentially just covering conference fees. So I think that we're all set unless anybody has any additional questions or comments on that one.
I thank everybody's support for that, but I do not mind paying my own way. So thank you.
So
did you want to address Don's other question?
Yeah, so I mentioned it. An email came in like just as we were starting the meeting last time, and I mentioned it to everybody that there was going to be this session on trauma-informed investigation and regulation, and I mentioned it to everybody, and then when I had time to read the letter from the chair of FSMB, Dr. Chowdhury, it had some different language, and it wasn't just like an open, you have 2 slots. It said there's one for the chair and one for the senior staff person, and the language was different in a way that made me feel like they were discouraging anybody other than the chair and the senior staff person using the funding. And I think it perhaps may be because they're trying it. I don't know, they might have grant funding where they're supposed to encourage boards to be more aware of this and have leaders be informed about it. I don't know, but so I hadn't followed up with giving everybody information about that, Matt, and that's something I wanted to check in with you on first of all. And so I know that Rick would have gotten that email. I don't know if he forwarded that to you or.
I don't think I got that one.
I'll forward it to
double-check
you,
again.
and
Thank
then
you.
you and I can check in on that. Okay.
Sounds good.
So sorry about that. If I got anybody excited about a trip to New Orleans,
Okay.
And all right, the other item that I need to let everybody know, the other item that was supposed to be on the agenda today it is the DEA presentation. And what happened was a couple of weeks ago in corresponding with George Lutz, who's the regional diversion manager for New England, I mentioned to him that our meetings are recorded in accordance with Vermont law. And he came back and told me that, oh, that's a problem because with the government shutdown, they need to get approval to do anything like that in a recorded session. And he wouldn't be able to get that for in time for the meeting. And so I said, oh, well, what about December? And he said, oh, no, it always takes a little while. Don't know about December either. And then I said, well, okay, we'll put it on the, we'll keep on working this and seeing what our options are. And
Just a question, could that be covered in executive session under the legal need for legal anonymity?
No, it's not legal advice. It's, really doesn't fit under that. And I had inquired with Justin before I told them about the recording. I asked if was there any workaround? And the feeling was no. But when they came back and said that in the end, he said he really wasn't comfortable doing it if it was going to be recorded. But then I got an email from Justin saying that perhaps if we were to break it off and make it like separate, and we've done this in the past. We used to do retreats. We haven't done one in the last couple of years, and that's probably my fault for not putting it together. It takes a lot of work and really distracted with a number of other things going on right now, and so didn't make the effort to do that this year or last year. But we could designate, say, the January meeting. We could say the regular meeting is going to go from noon to 2:30 or 3 o'clock or something, and then have them present, not in a board meeting, but in a board retreat, with the ground rule being the board could not have any discussions about business. The board couldn't take any actions. It would just be, one way exchange. I mean, you could ask questions, but it would be information coming from them, and maybe you could ask questions, but that would be the extent of it. So I need to get it. When he said that, though, there was the sentence where he said something about doing it not as a regular meeting, but something like I described. There was a question mark at the end of the sentence, not a period. So I need to talk to Justin. He's not on the meeting now, and I need to go into more detail with him about that. So nonetheless, the bottom line is we don't have DEA here today.
Okay.
And however, that gave us a little time in the schedule, and I had previously asked Pat about who she attended IAMRA, the conference that was held in September in Dublin, Ireland, and she graciously agreed to do an overview about what's going on with IAMRA. And so I'm going to let Pat do that. And then I just have a brief follow-up about an IAMRA webinar that I attended this week with an interesting proposition too. So Pat, take it away.
Great, thank you, David. So this is, I think, my third IAMRA meeting. And now that Vermont is a member, that will make it possible for Vermont board members or staff to attend in the future and to be eligible for scholarships. There are always a few scholarships that are given out for attendance at IAMRA by the Federation and by the Federation Foundation. So it's always an interesting collection and group of people. There are people from all over the world who are in regulation. There is a big representation from the United Kingdom, from Canada, from Australia and New Zealand. So the Commonwealth countries have always been very active. And I would add Ireland in that mix also. They're maybe not quite as active as the other countries that I had mentioned. But in addition, there were people from Africa. South Africa has been very involved. I heard a presentation from someone from Ghana. There was a presentation I listened to from a physician from Singapore. And Hong Kong was involved in the planning and will be the site for the next IAMRA meeting in 2 years. So it really is a pretty worldwide representation. I would say probably the group that surprisingly isn't as involved is Europe, aside from the United Kingdom and Ireland. But the rest of Europe has been less involved, although there was the WHO representative from Europe at the meeting and on the planning board. So it's a great opportunity to hear what's going on around the world, and especially in the context of immigration and emigration and movement of physicians these days. It is very interesting to hear from countries where international physicians are going to and where they're going away from. So all of those things kind of work both ways. So I just wanted to mention maybe some of the broad themes that took place at this conference and a couple of take-home messages, and I'm happy to answer any questions. But from what I saw, the overall topic or theme of the conference was people-focused regulation for a safer global community. And the themes that I pulled out from the conference were, number one, workforce, and that involved building and maintaining workforces, immigration, emigration, IMGs and alternative pathways, and then how you assess workforce from outside of your country coming into your country, and how do you promote workforce diversity. Another big theme was AI, especially AI uses and artificial intelligence regulation. A third theme was the wellness of healthcare providers and other people in the workforce. And then finally, there was, as you can imagine, there was a lot of talk about the state of governments and politics around the world that kind of entered into a lot of talks and presentations in various ways. So just real quickly, some of the workforce presentations that I found very interesting. The General Medical Council, which is the UK licensing body, actually has never had a licensing examination or assessment. But just recently, like a year ago, they began to have a licensing exam, which they developed on their own. And it was based on a couple of things going on. They had a lot of new schools that were opening that had varied curriculum and assessments, so they were feeling less comfortable about the equivalent of undergraduate medical education in their country as a whole, and wanted to have an additional independent assessment. And in addition, they had an increase in IMGs that were practicing and looking to practice in the UK. Interestingly, they developed two different examinations, for homegrown physicians, and then a separate exam for international graduates. Whereas we have the same one. They all, both MDs and international grads take the USMLE, and DOs can also take the USMLE, but usually take the COMLEX exam. There was a very interesting presentation by a gentleman from Dublin, Dr. Austin O'Carroll, on improving access for marginalized and deprived communities within Dublin. And what he has developed is an educational program for medical students to work directly within the communities and to develop skills and the passion to deliver quality and effective care to these populations. And at the same time, a focus of the program was to teach the ability to self-care for the physicians in learning, so to speak. So what was interesting about the program, they focused the clinical experience in the environments of the people. So there was a lot that went on in food shelters or in food banks and shelters, housing shelters. And his talk was just very inspiring. So I thought it was a great presentation. There was another talk on, there was an update on the physician workforce in Canada, which was pretty interesting. They have a net intake of physicians from other countries. So they are a net importer of physicians. And like the US, IMGs make up about 29% of their physician population. And that's been stable over the past 10 years. There was another presentation regarding locums use in primary care in England, in the UK, that really was interesting. They did a study on performance, more clinical performance, which was really pretty similar, except for a couple of items, but similar performance. But they also found that there was a labeling of locums that tended to lead to isolation of the locum tenens physicians, and isolation to the point where a locums physician would be less likely to report a safety or quality risk. So kind of a disadvantage, and certainly an unexpected outcome of that type of isolation. There was also a very interesting, this is on workforce again, presentation from Nova Scotia on their kind of transition into the Nova Scotia workforce for IMGs. And they have, we're dealing with that all over the United States with these new alternative pathways, but they actually have a model where they have a fairly, I think what is probably fairly competitive application to enter this program in Nova Scotia. And once you are accepted into the program, you become part of a IMG led primary care clinic that is supervised really by Canadian MD mentors who get paid to do that supervision. It's about maybe a 4 to a 6 month program, and it's been highly successful in terms of kind of a full wraparound introduction of the Canadian system, as well as seeing they take care of patients in the clinic and really have been successfully incorporated into the Nova Scotia workforce. Under AI, there was a very interesting presentation by Francis Lang from the UK that looked at how much physicians use AI and how much and for what uses. And what in their surveys, and I don't know the exact cohort that was surveyed, but it's very interesting. What they found was that 29% of physicians answering the survey used AI of some type in the past year. These people were more likely to be younger, to be male, and in the fields of radiology or medicine. And you can see radiology, I'm sure, uses AI a lot. And there was just a lot of other data that he presented that in terms of use and what then he surveyed the survey participants regarding what they would view as the role of regulators in AI. And those recommendations included the following: to clarify responsibilities and risks associated with AI systems, to provide more support and guidance around ethical considerations, to promote training and education, and that regulators should keep abreast of advancements in AI. So I thought it was a pretty interesting presentation with some data from surveyed physicians. And then maybe the last one I'll talk about was a presentation from Singapore. Again, he talked about transforming regulation in tomorrow's era of digitalized and personalized medicine. And he talked about 3 dimensions that regulators should consider to ensure that regulation remains effective and relevant in the future of medicine. One he called in the category of trade-offs, that innovation demands speed and embraces uncertainty, and safety requires more time and evidence. So somehow you have to balance innovation and the speed and uncertainty with keeping things safe, which requires more time. Then he talked about the tightrope, the balance, walking the balance between innovation and safety, and the balance between accessibility and cost. And he talked about the telescopes, which was anticipating emergent innovations using adaptive and agile regulatory frameworks. His message really was effective regulation is not about creating barriers, but finding a balance, looking ahead, and creating relationships. And so Singapore has been using what they call these regulatory sandbox to better understand the role of AI in services and trying to enable innovation and do that safely at the same time. So those are just some highlights. I hope that makes sense. It's hard to hear a lot of words without a visual, but it's a great meeting. You really do get a sense that of what's going on around the world. And I thought especially that the workforce presentations were quite timely in that regard, viewing the global medical workforce. So I'm happy to answer any questions if.
Pat, thanks for sharing that. I mean,
Yeah.
It sounds interesting. I think American medicine is very isolated. And I think we think of our system and don't tend to think about a lot outside. So, especially with some of the emerging technologies and AI, especially. David, you have your hand up. Go there.
Yes, Pat, I just wonder, acknowledging that economic drivers drive all these movements of people, was there much discussion about the problem of the brain drain from certain countries to more resource-rich companies like the U.S.?
Right. I mean, that is an issue, obviously. It is mentioned, but, I've heard other people talk about this in the past, especially from South Africa and in particular, because a gentleman from South Africa was the chair of IAMRA a couple of years ago. And sometimes people say, that they can't hold people back from going where they want to go. And that is the reality of immigration. But certainly that is a concern, I think, that a lot of people have in the background. Yeah, it will be, I would add, there will probably be at the Federation meeting, they always have some international people, usually 1 or 2 presentations that give a bit of that, or a bit of global perspective. But there are obviously, economically, the US system is very different from the rest of the world.
Yeah. Evan?
Pat, thank you. This is really interesting. First question is whether you have any more information or a source regarding the Nova Scotia program. When you were talking about that, it sounded so similar to the experience of the residency program, where if you're taking someone who was educated in a very different system into your program, you're really sort of adopting them. You have to help them to get their feet and succeed in, a lot of ways. So I thought if they're developing that on a province-wide scale, that's great. And the other question is just a tag on to what David was just talking about. If no one is keeping track of how many US physicians are emigrating, they should. A fair number of my friends and colleagues either have left or are leaving. They're taking jobs in Canada and in the Australia, New Zealand orbit and Spain. The brain drain, so-called, has gone in one direction for a long time. And I think that, the polarity of the earth suddenly flipped here.
Right. I can't, regarding your first question with in the Nova Scotia program is called the PACE program, PACE. And the IMGs, I've got this, I didn't read the whole paragraph. They apply and are vetted and selected for this program. And I think the success of the program, to be honest, begins with the vetting process, because they do a good job with that. They then work in this primary care clinic with dedicated MD, local Nova Scotia Canadian physicians who have been put through an educational program for how to assess and how to give feedback. So that is a major component to judging competency. Both the IMGs and the MD mentors are paid. And prior to beginning the program, as I think I mentioned this, the IMGs learn about the culture and the medical system, so they have more context. The competency-based clinical assessment is performed regularly using Canadian standards, and remediation is being performed. So they really have a good educational system set up. there were questions about, well, how much does this cost? Because this must cost a lot. And the answer is it does cost a lot, but as they said, it's less than the cost of building a new medical school.
Yeah.
So they felt that, and at the same time, these people, the physicians who are working at the clinic are providing access for the population in the area. So it's a very interesting program. It is costly, but again, everything costs money. So what costs more or what costs less? So and the brain drain is interesting, and the movement is interesting.
Yeah. Thank you.
Great. Anybody else have any questions or comments for Pat before we move on? Great. Well, thank you.
Oh, good. Someone put the PACE program up there. Oh, good. Matt did. Okay. Good.
For reference for later, pull it up in your browser and look at it later.
Yeah.
I think, David, we're at the point for our investigations and council meetings to go into executive session, unless there's anything else that you're aware of. So why don't it's 1:27. I could certainly use a second to get up a drink and stretch our legs. How about we give ourselves like 7 or 8 minutes and I'll meet you on the executive session. Oh, wait, I need a motion.
Evan has a question.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Evan.
Not a question. This is just a thanks to David for working on the DEA thing and saying that I'm not overly surprised of the 4 people in my family who work for the federal government at the beginning of the year. 2 of them still do. One person who is not a relative, but who I know who works for the DEA, describes the same kind of unfair and extreme pressures that workers are experiencing in other agencies. And so I'm not surprised that there's a lot of reticence to be a guest, and just thanks for, going with the process and doing what you can do.
Great. Thank you. So I think we need a motion to go into executive session. I entertain a motion.
So moved, Philibert.
And
Second.
Perfect. Second from Pat King. Any discussion on that? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All in favor, run away.
Aye. Okay, so we'll meet on the executive session in about 7-8 minutes.